Hey guys, I got this 2012 GMC Sierra here with a check engine light on, and we scanned the vehicle, found out that it has fault code P0521, this code here, and that is for the engine oil pressure sensor performance. There's two other codes. You could also have a 522 and a 523, and there's the descriptions. One's a low voltage, one's high voltage. So yeah, we've got the 521, which is oil pressure sensor performance. Now, I just pulled up like a quick thing here on ProDemand that shows confirmed fixes. So you can see that we've got 7,996 confirmed cases of the engine oil pressure sensor being the issue. And the next thing up is the valve lifter oil filter, then a valve cover, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of nice to have those cases just to sort of point you in the right direction without actually testing anything. The chances are that it's probably an oil pressure sensor, but in this case, I need to actually go through the diagnosis to find out exactly what's wrong. This is what the oil pressure sensor looks like. Okay, we got 3 pins, and it is located in the back of the engine. Now, underneath of this sensor, there's a little screen. It's a filter. And you can see that there's an O-ring in the center, and there's 2 sections to this screen. So oil comes in one side and goes out the other. That monitors pressure. And you can see, so oil probably comes in through the bottom and then exits out the top, hence why the bottom screen has a bunch of dirt in it. Now, this thing's a real pain to get out because, for one, it's in a crappy spot to begin with. You're not going to be able to really see very well, and also there's a bunch of hoses and electrical harnesses and fuel lines, evap lines, a bunch of other stuff that's in the way. Just makes it very difficult to get to. The worst thing that's in your way is a plastic shield, and I feel bad for you if you're going to try to do this because it'll drive you nuts. Here's a little picture of the back of the engine. This is the big plastic shield that I'm talking about. And there is a small opening that will give you a little bit of view to where the sensor is. And you get a flashlight in there, you can kind of see, but for the most part, it's a real pain. So I pulled this filter out because if this thing gets plugged up, obviously we're gonna have really low oil pressure readings. Now this thing, like I say, is down in a hole. Once you take the sensor out, to get this thing out, I used a pick, and it took me probably like 15 minutes to get it out. And I did actually puncture the screen at the top trying to get it out. There's nothing to really hook onto. I see there's these 2 little ears. I guess I could have tried some really small needle nose pliers, but I didn't know those ears were there because you just can't see down in the hole very well. It's in a crappy spot. So we can see here our circuit system description. Actually, we'll start at the top here. So the engine control module detects the difference between the predicted oil pressure and the actual oil pressure is either less than 6.8 psi or greater than 7.3. So basically the computer is predicting what the oil pressure should be based on outside air temperature, the engine temperature, and RPM. So like at idle, when the truck's fully warmed up, it's expecting to see a certain amount of oil pressure. So that would be the predicted pressure. And then it's actually receiving a real lifetime pressure measurement from our sensor, and it compares those. So if it sees a difference, it's going to say, okay, there's an issue, obviously, turns on the check engine light and sets that fault code. Now, for our system description, the oil pressure sensor changes voltage based on engine oil pressure, right? That's what it does. The engine oil pressure sensor is a 3-wire sensor comprised of our signal circuit, low reference, which is our ground, and a 5-volt reference circuit. And basically the engine control module supplies 5 volts to the sensor and also provides a ground. And then the ECM just monitors the signal circuit. So basically it's like a variable resistor inside of here, and as the oil pressure increases, the resistance would decrease, which would increase the voltage and give you a higher oil pressure reading. So the plug on the back, it's not too bad to get to. I'll crawl up here to try to show you what it looks like. So we got, you can see we got a little blue on the inside of there, a couple ears just to locate the connector. There's no lock, there's no like secondary lock on it. It's just one you just push in and it lifts up. We've got 3 wires, so there's going to be a black one, that's going to be your ground. A gray and white one, that's going to be your 5-volt reference. And then we've got a tan and white one, and that is going to be our signal wire. Now, I just went through and did some checks. So basically for the ground, if you want to check that, this is all just resistance readings. So you could set your meter up, and then if you're going to do ground, so the black wire, you stick one lead on the ground and then other lead on positive, and you should have battery voltage that would confirm that your ground is good. As far as the 5-volt reference goes, you're going to put one of your test leads on ground of the battery, and the other lead goes into that gray wire, and then when you turn the key on, you should have 5 volts. And then for the signal wire, I just did a continuity check between the connector and the engine control module. Now, I found this kind of interesting. Pin number 50 is going to be where your signal wire comes to. And we've got a black connector and we've got a gray connector. Now, you will get readings on both pin 50 slots on either connector, and only one of them is going to be the right reading. So the gray connector located on the bottom of the engine control module, this is going to be connector X1. And if you look closely on the edge of the connector, it will say pin 1, which is down in this corner, and pin 61, which is up in this corner. So I just counted backwards and then ended up coming to pin 50. So then for this other one, this black connector down here, that's going to be connector X2. So you want the gray connector on pin 50, and then you're going to want to go to your tan and white wire on your connector. And you should have no more than half of an ohm. Like I had 0.34 ohms, so a third of an ohm, not very much, that's good. One quick thing you could do is just use a scan tool to look at oil pressure, and with the engine hot at idle, you should be around 25 psi. I just have a video scope set up to show you what the threaded hole looks like on the back of the head, because you can't really stick the camera in there to see. But basically where this vacuum line runs into the intake manifold for your brake booster, if you follow that around, it's basically located just below that. That plastic shield, I tried messing around with it for 10 minutes to take it off, and there's lines that go through it, and I'm pretty sure there's a bolt and a couple clips that hold it on, and it is just such a pain. The vacuum line that comes off the brake booster, like you can't even get to the clamp. And you know, not my vehicle, obviously I'm not gonna like cut the thing in half, but you really want to cut the thing in half because it's such a pain. But anyhow, I do not have an oil pressure gauge, unfortunately, to get an actual reading. So the next thing I wanted to do was get a visual on the vehicle. So I did notice that this thing has an oil leak. We'll lift it up. I'm going to show you something. Okay, so there's an aluminum block that's up there, and your oil cooler lines go into that block, and then the block goes into the oil filter housing, which I believe is part of your oil pan. So you can see all the oil that's all over here. And one of the things that's on the list is your oil cooler seals. So if that gasket or the seals are leaking bad enough, which in this case I think is just a very minor leak, but if they're leaking, oil can go out and air can enter, which means that the pressures could be skewed at the sensor. So that could possibly be enough to trip the light. However, I suspect that the oil pressure sensor itself is faulty based on the amount of confirmed fixes. However, it's late at night right now and we do not have a sensor to try, but I'm going to get one tomorrow and try it. And I'm also probably going to see if I can clean that up and possibly put either new O-rings on it or see if I can seal it up somehow. There is a technical service bulletin for this fault code, and they basically tell you to make sure that you have a GM oil filter on there, and also to refer to another service bulletin that has to do with these. So yeah, based on the technical service bulletin that tells you to replace the oil filter and also the PCV system to make sure that the system isn't plugged and that it's working properly. So the service bulletin number for that, I guess for most of you out there, you're probably not going to look this up. Let's just jump on here. Okay, so here's the technical bulletin that comes up for this fault code. We can see there's the reference number. It was issued January 28th of 2022. Bunch of vehicles that it covers. And then, basically just says, here's the, if you're working on Gen 4 V8 with this fault code and it has low oil pressure indicated on the instrument panel in cold or hot weather, and is currently equipped with P0521 or P0521 oil filter, determine the engine is properly repaired and cleaned following the procedure that's used in the latest version of Bulletin 10-06-01-008. That bulletin right there, which is oil consumption bulletin. And just basically has you go through and do a bunch of tests. Wants you to also check the left rocker cover, square baffle style. There's two styles. And verify that the baffles can hold water and do not leak. If any leaks are found, clean and seal the edge of the baffle with RTV if possible, or replace the valve cover. So there's a bunch of stuff, but anyhow, like I say, chances are it's probably this. I'm going to put this sensor back in, and then let's look at the scan tool and see what kind of pressure readings we get now that the engine's cooled down. We'll check it at idle, and then we'll rev it up and see what we get. All right, key on. We got 1.1 PSI, engine oil pressure sensor readings. Fire this thing up. So right now we're about 1100 RPM, 35.9. And we are stone cold right now, so I'm just gonna let this thing heat up. We'll see what happens once the fuel system goes into closed loop and the idle drops down to where it should be, around 700. All right, so engine is now up to temp, and we're sitting at idle. I want to say we're at like 650 RPM, so 23, 24 PSI. I'll bring it up to 1,000. Right about there. So 26 PSI. $2,000. We're about 31, 32. That was 3,000. So it's building pressure. Then we let off, it drops. So everything appears to be working as normal. I'm just curious, maybe there's it's possible that the sensor is intermittently dropping out. That's another possibility. That's all I got for you at this point in time. Like I say, I'm going to try a sensor tomorrow and also try to clean up that connection at the oil cooler lines on the block. So we will do an update and let you guys know. But if you have any questions, throw them in the comments below. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have. Hopefully you find this video helpful. I just wanted to put a bunch of information out there on where the sensor is and how it kind of works and what to check for and what kind of numbers you're going to get. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.